Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to treat the economy like a massively complex vehicle, and our ultimate goal is to learn exactly how to read its essential dashboard dials. We're zooming out, moving away from individual decisions to look at the entire engine of the nation's wealth. Honestly, understanding these dials is the difference between being totally blindsided by the economy and actually being prepared for it. To really kick things off, ask yourself this. Why did a simple payphone call cost just 10 cents back in 1933, but then jump to 50 cents by 2010? I mean, that is a five-fold increase for the exact same service, right? That right there is the pricing dial of our economic engine. Now consider another gauge, the labor dial. Why were jobs incredibly scarce in 2010 during the Great Recession, yet relatively plentiful just a few years earlier back in 2006? These aren't just random historical anomalies. They are direct symptoms of the underlying macroeconomic engine at work, literally shifting gears right beneath our feet. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the macroeconomic big picture, move into the three horizons of time, and then we'll look at measuring the GDP pie. After that, we'll cover balancing the national checkbook, check the warning lights of inflation and unemployment, and finally, we'll wrap up with the cost of money. All right, let's jump right into part one. The macroeconomic big picture, zooming out to understand the whole economy. You know, to really make sense of the world at this scale, we basically have to abstract the details. Think about it. If we tried to track every single transaction out there, every cup of coffee you buy, every haircut given, we'd literally drown in data. So instead, macroeconomics treats all markets for different goods, like agricultural products, medical services, and smartphones, as one single massive goods market. We treat Microsoft shares and Rembrandt paintings as part of the exact same assets market. And why do we do this? Well, because getting bogged down in the micro details makes it completely impossible to see the overarching trends. The immense benefit of this incredible abstraction is that it allows us to step back and finally grasp the essential mechanics of booms, recessions, and long-term growth. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, Three Horizons of Time, or the gears of our macroeconomic engine. You see, time actually dictates how this whole engine behaves. In the short run, prices are essentially fixed. And why is that? Well, mostly because of things like sticky wages. I mean, employers don't cut paychecks every single time sales dip, right? And menu costs, since a restaurant doesn't reprint its menus every single afternoon. Because prices don't adjust immediately, changes in overall demand directly generate changes in output and employment. This is exactly where booms and recessions live. Moving to the long run, our productive capacity is mostly fixed by the technology and factories we currently have. So in this time frame, large-scale shifts in demand mostly just drive prices up or down, rather than really changing output. And finally, over the very long run, spanning decades, it's all about growth theory. It's that slow accumulation of new capital and inventing new technology that fundamentally raises our standard of living. Okay, moving on to Section 3, measuring the GDP pie, figuring out exactly where our economic fuel goes. Just take a look at this breakdown of the American economy from 2009. Notice that consumption by households is an absolutely massive slice of the pie here, taking up nearly 71%. That means your everyday shopping, buying groceries, paying for streaming services, filling up your car, is the primary driver of the entire U.S. economic engine. Government purchases take up another 20.6%, and private investment from businesses expanding or buying equipment sits at 11.4%. But look down at net exports. It actually takes a slightly negative, kind of humorous bite out of our pie. Because the U.S. imported more goods from abroad than it exported, that slice acts as a minus 2.8% drag on the total. Let's actually flip this for a second and look at it from the production side. If the entire economy is just a giant pie-baking business, the final value of the output you produce is perfectly equal to your factor payments. Here's how it breaks down. Step 1, you pay wages to your friends to roll the dough. That's the payment to labor. Step 2, you pay rent for the kitchen. That's the payment to capital. Step 3, whatever pie is left over is your entrepreneurial profit. When you add all those incomes together, it equals the exact value of the pie itself. This is absolutely crucial to hold on to. Output produced always equals income received. All right, let's turn to the next dial on our dashboard. Section 4, balancing the national checkbook, the fundamental identity. Okay, Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. This simple equation right here, this is the fundamental national income accounting identity. You definitely want to memorize this one because everything flows from it. Think of this as exactly the same pie we just talked about, just written out in mathematical form. The Y stands for output, or gross domestic product. That total output equals C, which is the consumption we just discussed, plus I, representing business investment, plus G for government spending, and finally plus NX, representing net exports. Every single thing a country produces is demanded by one of these four categories. They are the core building blocks of the economy. But here's where it gets super interesting. We can mathematically rearrange that fundamental identity to reveal a powerful, undeniable truth about where all that money flows. Let's break it down. Look at the left side, S minus I. This represents the private sector, everyday people and businesses. If the private sector saves more money, that's the S, then it invests into building new businesses, the I, you have excess funds. Now, those extra funds don't just vanish into thin air, right? Because the equation has to balance, those funds have to flow somewhere else, which brings us to the right side. That excess private savings must go toward one of two things. It either finances a government budget deficit by buying government bonds, or it gets lent to foreigners to finance a trade surplus. The national checkbook always balances. If one sector is a net saver, another sector mathematically has to be a net borrower. No way around it. Let's shift gears a bit and check on those warning lights flashing on the dash in Section 5, inflation and unemployment. This hypothetical beer and Skittles economy is brilliant because it perfectly demonstrates the sheer illusion of nominal GDP. Imagine in 2005, your entire output was exactly one beer and one pack of Skittles for a grand total of $1.50. Fast forward 5 years to 2010, and the nominal total looks huge at $6.25. You might think the economy is absolutely booming, but look a little closer. The actual physical prices doubled. If we calculate the 2010 physical output, which is 2 beers and 3 Skittles, but we use the old 2005 prices to evaluate them, we get a real GDP of only $3.50. Just seeing the nominal total completely hides the fact that real inflation-adjusted physical output, the actual goods in your hand, didn't quadruple at all. It barely more than doubled. The price tag lied to us. And that brings us to our other major warning lights, unemployment. Now, the official unemployment rate in 2009 hit 10%. But, that official number only counts people who are actively looking for work, and it completely hid the real human pain in the economy. Think about the despair of a discouraged worker, someone who searched for months and finally just gave up out of sheer frustration. The official rate completely ignores them. But when you layer in those discouraged workers, plus the marginally attached, and people who are desperately trying to find full-time jobs but are forced to work part-time for economic reasons, the picture gets much, much darker. The true, broader measure of human unemployment during that crisis actually topped a staggering 17%. Which brings us to our final section, number 6, the cost of money, looking at interest rates and purchasing power. Before we even talk about interest, though, consider this absolutely mind-blowing number from the research of Yale's William Nordhaus. Today's electric light is 25 times more efficient than Thomas Edison's was back in 1883. Why does this matter? Because these hidden, unmeasured quality improvements make calculating true inflation incredibly untidy. $1 buys a significantly better, brighter, and more efficient light bulb today than it did in the past. This means that official price indexes, which just look at raw price tags, might actually overstate how fast the cost of living is rising. We're honestly getting more value for the dollar than the charts give us credit for. So, because inflation is constantly shifting the actual value of your money, it is absolutely vital to distinguish between a nominal return and a real return. A nominal interest rate is simply what the bank tells you you're earning, in simple dollars. It's the big number printed on the promotional flyer. But the real interest rate is what happens when you strip away the sneaky thief of inflation. Once you account for how much prices have actually gone up, the real interest rate is the only metric that guarantees your actual purchasing power is genuinely growing over time. To really drive this home, consider the sheer tragedy of nominal thinking. Imagine your parents diligently invested $936 at a 5% nominal interest rate back in 1992. They'd look at their statement in 2010 and see over $2,000. Sounds like a great, responsible return, right? But over those exact same years, college tuition skyrocketed due to inflation, jumping to over $7,000. Their return was mostly an illusion. Ignoring the sneaky thief of inflation leads investors to think their wealth is growing way faster than it really is, which can severely and quietly destroy their future purchasing power. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one ultimate challenge. We've looked at the shifting gears of time, mapped out the giant GDP pie, broken down the national identity equation, checked the warning lights of inflation and unemployment, and exposed the real cost of money. So, can you use this dashboard to make sense of the beautifully untidy macroeconomy happening all around you right now? Keep these visual tools in mind the next time you look at your grocery receipt or read the morning news, and watch the incredibly complex pieces fall perfectly into place.